Hello there, folks. As you know, this is Craig Gray. You're on the PeaceWalker podcast, episode 283. And I am really excited today because we've got a special guest. Now, I'm going to screw up the last name again. Tony and I were talking before I started recording about, I've known Tony for quite a while, and I've always slopped through his last name.
I
No,
can help.
do it. Help me.
Well, I should have given you the secret, right? So, Notarianni is a notary whose name was Giovanni. So
Eh,
they put them together. So it's Notary Yanni.
Notarianni.
Oh, you see, you can't say it. It's
Yeah.
okay.
So, anyways, before I slaughter that anymore, um, we're going to be talking about his pretty new book that he just wrote about training and working out. And it's a great time of year for that if you're listening to the podcast when it's coming out, because, we're getting near the new year and everybody's making New Year's resolutions. And a lot of time that involves fitness and training. So, this is a great time to pick his book up. That's what we're going to be talking about, or talk about some of his background in training as well. But before we get into that, I always have to invite you folks to join our free community, which if you go to peacewalker.mn.co, you're going to get access to our free community, a couple free courses. One course called 6 Day Defense, which is a basic self-defense course, 10 minutes a day, 6 days. And then the other course is called Just Say This, which is about verbal conflict management. So you can get those two free courses on the site and join our community and be surrounded by a bunch of people that are probably on the same path as you are if you're listening to the show. So peacewalker.mn.co. All right, without further ado, Mr. Tony, let's talk about you a little bit. I was just thinking the other day, it's like how long we've known each other, close to 20 years.
Wow. Has it been that long? It
Yeah,
goes so quick. I feel like the last 5 or 10 years have just been too fast.
I know. I mean, well, COVID too kind of
Yeah.
screws my mentality on the timeline on that.
Yeah, I
But
think that did it.
I know a bit about your background, and I'm still learning new stuff all the time.
Mm.
But why don't you share a little bit with our listeners about
Yeah.
all things Tony?
I mean, I don't know what to. I mean, I guess I have a few different aspects to me, right? I'm a father of three young kids. I work in the technology industry. I do martial arts, right? And I have a lot of other things and aspects. But I guess I could start. I was born in the UK, um, and when I was about a year old, my family moved overseas following job opportunities, and so
Now,
I ended up living.
overseas, don't
Yeah,
mind me interrupting, overseas, where?
well, that's what I was going to say. I ended up in Switzerland,
Okay.
Germany, and Portugal,
Oh, wow.
and then coming back to the UK, and then going to the northeast of England, which is a kind of like like a very specific, distinct area. And I sort of did most of my formative years there, and went to college there, and then got a job there, and then around about after 2001, I was working in British Airways at the time, and they had a lot of layoffs because of all of the impact of the tragedy on and it impacted the airlines. And I ended up moving around and trying different things, and somehow managed to get myself into China for a while, and then ended up 20 years ago now coming to the US,
Wow.
where I've been ever since. And so, and I live in New Jersey, and I commute to the city a couple of days a week, and I take care of my family, and I do martial arts twice a week at least. And tomorrow I'll be doing a seminar, so I keep pretty active that way. And like you said, I wrote a book, and the book really came out of a frustration, to be honest. Um, the frustration came out of my own personal circumstances, but also recognizing that it overlaps a lot with everyone else's circumstances, which is that, I have a desire to be in good shape and be healthy and be well. But I've struggled to do it because the way that I used to work out when I was younger, when I had more time on my hands, wasn't sustainable when I was older. And I think that I was just very frustrated by the fact that, every time I thought I was starting to get into a fitness routine and start feeling good about myself, then something would change. Like I'd have another kid, or my job would
Right.
change, or
Yeah.
I'd have to commute, or I'd have to work on something in my house, or, one emergency or other thing would come up. And I also noticed that I'm not the only person who has this problem, not necessarily the same exact reasons, but I notice a lot of people struggling to stay healthy and stay active. And so I started to really get, as you know about me right now, is that when I was younger, I started studying sport and exercise as part of my education, and I got a bachelor's degree in sports science. And obviously, a lot of things have changed since the late 90s in terms of what we know about the body and exercise. But so I started to, go back into it, and I thought, is there a way that I can work out in a short amount of time, right? Um, you know, if I only have 10, 15 minutes or whatever, what can I do? What can I do with that time? What's the most I can cram in? What's the most I can get out of it? And so that's where that's the story of the book is how I learned and studied and trial and error and got to a point where I thought this is actually something that's working. And people started to say, "Oh, wow, Tony, like, you look good, you look better, or whatever," right? And
I noticed.
I didn't do it for like for that reason. And I talk about that in the book actually, but I didn't do it for that specific reason. But people were intrigued. Like obviously they were like, you've changed, but you haven't changed. It's not like you have a new lifestyle now. Somehow you're able to have that lifestyle and still work out, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people were asking me, and I thought, you know what? I started talking to them and explaining to them, and after about 30 minutes, I'm like, why don't I just write a book? And that way, if people want to know, they can spend 5 or 6 hours reading a book in their own time, and I just have to tell the story once, right? And then I also thought, well, what if more people can get benefit out of this, right? What if more people can get benefit out of this? And the book is really targeted at people who, have a desire to change their life, but they don't necessarily have the time, and maybe they need a bit of help and guidance to sort of like figure out what to do with that time and how to get there. So that's how the book came about. Um, and yeah, I definitely have more work to do with it. I've spent the last year actually doing new things since I wrote the book, so I need to write like some additional chapters in there.
Excited. Yeah, second
Um,
edition.
and I've realized that, maybe the description of the exercise, some of the exercises are kind of like almost like esoteric in a way. And so I'm going to do some videos and put them
Nice.
on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel already, but I haven't put anything there. But I'm planning to put some videos out there, and I'm not really doing it for like you know, purely commercial reasons. Oh, it's nice to get some residual, income or whatever. But I'm really doing it because if there's people out there who can benefit from it, I think that I want to empower people, more power to people. And I know there's this big conversation going on right now about, the government and health and all the rest of it. And, I think it's always good to talk about these things, and it's always good to reshuffle the way that we regulate these things. But at the end of the day, no external person is going to solve your problems, right? Only you are going to solve your problems. And so I feel like my book, and maybe if other people are interested in helping with that book or helping me spread the word, or thinking of other ways that we can get more people active and feel empowered themselves, then that's what it's really all about. It's
Nice.
really it's really more about like a grassroots movement of how can we empower ourselves and be healthy and fit.
Well, and to you folks out there listening in, Tony is very humble. I mean, he is a very highly accomplished martial artist. He's very high ranking and very good. One of the best martial artists that I've ran across in my years of tromping around there. So don't let him fool you. He's mild mannered and very polite and humble, but he's the real deal. So not only have you been training in martial arts for a long time and coaching in martial arts and instructing, but also your bachelor's degree in, was it sports,
Sports science, yeah.
sports science?
Mhm.
And I mean, And yeah, although you graduated a while back, but still you have that foundational element, and you've been not just active like going to the gym. I mean, you've been actively pursuing martial arts and getting training in that and teaching in that. And that's what this whole podcast is about that protector lifestyle of how do we sustain a healthy view on protecting self and others and living a good life. And a huge part of that, as we all know, is our physical, not just our physical capacity, but also just our physical health. Yes, in the thick of something happening, and if you have to physically defend yourself or somebody else, you want your physicality to be available. But let's face it, to be healthy, happy, live a good life, if you are not feeling good, you are not going to be living a good life. I mean, many of you know if you've been listening in, I had a major back surgery several months ago now. And I mean, I was miserable before that. I was in pain all the time. I was still training, but it was hard. And I'm feeling great now, but a lot of that is because of, you know, putting my body back together and having a good thing for modern medicine. But and like Tony was saying, a lot of people don't find the time to work out. And he's got this method that's 15 minutes. If you don't have 15 minutes, you are just BSing yourself. I mean, you could take 15 minutes as an investment to, in yourself and quite frankly, in your family and in everybody who comes in contact you with you, because when we're feeling better physically, everything else is feeling better too. So we're very interconnected. So here's Tony's book. And
Available on Amazon in e-Kindle and paperback.
yeah, I like physical books, so I got
Yeah,
I
me
got the
too.
physical one from Amazon. But before we even get into more of the details of the book, which I do want to get into, I want to talk a little bit about your martial arts background
Mm,
and and your pursuit of becoming a protector in this capacity and some of your training that you've done, why you got into training in the first place, why do
mm,
you continue? I mean, you've been training for, I don't know, probably your whole life.
mm.
And what is that story? Why did you start from the beginning, and what keeps you going?
It's a good question. Um, I guess, like most people, I became aware of martial arts when I was young through media, like James Bond movies or
Right.
whatever. Um, but I remember when I was, yeah, I have quite a lot of family in Australia, actually, through my mother's side. Like a lot of her family are over there. And we went over there. I went over there once years ago when I was a kid. It was like 85. And on the way back, we stopped at Hong Kong and we checked into our hotel. And for some reason, there was something with the rooms. Like we had to stay in a different room while they got our other room ready or whatever. And so I was eager to see Hong Kong, right? It was like this exotic place for some young guy from the northeast of the UK. And I'm looking out the window and I didn't know what I was looking at, but obviously now I do. There was a park and there was a local kendo club. And kendo was very popular in Hong Kong, apparently. There was a local kendo club, but they were getting some kind of a guest instructor from Japan. And like I didn't realize at the time, like, but this guy must have been like really high level, incredible uh, uh, martial artist, and not just a kendo guy, but like more of like a traditional teacher. Because I just remember watching the class through the window, and all these guys were sort of hitting each other with shinais, wearing their helmets, and this guy was just the only one there who didn't have armor or anything.
He's
And I
just
remember, I
doing
remember
them.
at one point he asked three guys to attack him, and he had a metal sword, right? I don't know if I assume it wasn't sharp, but he asked three guys to attack him, and he just took them all out. And like it was one of those things where you see it, and your brain is still trying to catch up a few seconds later, like what happened.
Right.
And I remember that just burned in my mind. And so I was always very interested in martial arts after that, after seeing like some like real like traditional martial arts, but in that kind of like freestyle way where it was like that guy just did that in the moment, that it left an impression on me. And then, I kind of came back and kind of forgot about it and what have you. And then when I was about 12, one of my school friends said, do you want to go to karate on Sunday? Because that's what they said, karate, like that's how we said it, local dialect, right? And so I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And it so happened that that day there was like a cross country race at the school. And my older sister was in the final year, and I was in the first year of the school. And um, I was, I can't remember, whatever. We were both in the race or whatever. And so the plan was I would go to the karate class and then I would go do this cross country race afterwards, right? And I went to this karate class, and it was like for 12-year-old, so it was like a lot of bunny hops, which are really bad for you, by the way, right? Bunny
Yeah,
hops up
right.
and
Yeah.
down the hall and relay races and sort of like rudimentary punching and stuff like that. Not really any form or anything, just like burn the energy. But we did a lot of stretching and other things, but my body felt great. I remember like my body felt great because the only time I really did any kind of exercise was either playing, games in the park with my friends or when I was doing sport at school. And I'd never done like a class like that before where you paid money and they taught you and
Right.
instructed you. And afterwards, I had to go do this run, and I actually ran better after that than I would have done normally.
Nice.
And it was because I felt like my body, somehow the stretching and the exercises and just the blood pumping and it just made me feel good. And so I was like, oh, I want to go back and do more of that. So I did that, and I progressed into the adult class because when I was like 13, like most of the kids were a lot younger and they didn't know what to do with me. So they put me in the adult class. But I started to experience a problem there because I was going to competitions and I was going against 17-year-olds,
Yeah.
black belts in Kung Fu who were doing these like giant crescent kicks, right? And
You're like, what?
one of them even got disqualified because he was too violent. Like he didn't stop and he just kept punching me, right?
Oh,
So I was against
geez.
these older, aggressive kids who were higher level. And even in the class, it was like we were sparring, and the older students, like the grown-ups, would just like it was just a joke, right? Because I was a lot smaller. So when I was about 14, I hit this wall, which is, you know, um, a common one, I think, which is the bigger, stronger opponent is the winner. And it's like, well,
Right.
then what's the point?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not worried about someone who's smaller or weaker than me, right? To be quite
Right.
frank, right? I'm worried about someone who's older. So, I was hoping martial arts might be some kind of an equalizer, right? So I kind of drifted away and stopped going, and but I was reading the magazines by now. So I was reading these like martial arts magazines, like they had one called Combat and Martial Arts Illustrated. And in those magazines they had all different martial arts from all over the world and representatives. So I was like, wow, this is great. Wanted to learn all about them and all those impressive pictures of people holding exotic weapons, right? And
Right. I
showing
want
their
to do that.
muscle stuff, right? Um, and then I saw one, it was about Bujinkan. And there was a guy who used to teach a lot of the UK and Ireland and stuff. And there was a picture of him teaching a seminar. And in the picture that they picked, he was kneeling on the ground, holding a kid's jacket, a young kid, like probably about 10, holding his jacket lapel so the kid could do something to him. And I guess like well, first of all, it turns out the person's not as humble as like as I thought, but it was very humble, like to that picture. Like it showed like that the teacher was willing to um, depreciate themselves to help a young, obviously like weaker
Right.
person to train. And he was willing to even get on his knees, right, to be the same height. So when he grabbed him, he could try and he could give him guidance. And that kind of like I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And so I looked for a dojo, right? Where can I do this martial art? And there was like three advertised in the back of the thing. So like the whole of the UK, right? There's like three that had adverts.
And remind me too, is it Peter King? Wasn't he?
Yeah, it wasn't him in the picture, but like
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, he was around at the time as
But
well.
he was kind of the guy who brought, didn't he kind of was the guy who brought, no?
It's more complicated than that,
Yeah,
but yeah,
no, is it?
you get him on the show. He'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I looked and there was only like three clubs, and I was like, oh well, that's not a good start, right? But it turned out one of those three clubs that was advertising was in my town.
Yeah, there you go.
And it was like 15-minute walk from my house.
It's like
Right.
faded.
I was a teenager, and all
Oh,
I had to do was send a stamped addressed envelope. Remember those?
oh, I do.
Yeah. So I had to send one of those to the person, and then they would be like, okay, they would send me the information about the class. But I was, I didn't do it because I was kind of procrastinating teenager, right? So then I get a job at a store that sells video games, right? And conversation comes up that the manager does karate, right? And we talk about martial arts and stuff. And I talk about that I want to do this particular martial art. He goes, oh, this guy does it. And it turns out one of the guys I work with goes to that club.
Oh,
And he's
there you
like,
go.
come along on Wednesday. And I'm like, okay, sure. But I'm a procrastinating teenager, so I stand him up, right? So he's like, if you come again, that's on you. Like, I was gonna introduce you and vouch for you. Says you can come if you want, but like, I don't even believe you're gonna show up. So at this point, he was like, not very impressed, right? So I'm like, oh, I'll definitely go next week. He's like, yeah, sure you will, right? Well, that was actually my birthday. It was my 15th birthday, and the night before my birthday, one of my friends like is let's go to the school. There's like an activity club that night and what have you. And so we go to the school and there was like a party for the drama production or something. And his brother's friend let us in, sneak us in. We got in for a while. And so I kind of had like a free birthday party for a bit. And then we left. And I was leaving the school and walking back to my house and I got jumped.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I got jumped and I didn't have any like external like sign of getting, you know, badly injured or anything. So
Okay.
I didn't tell my parents or anything. I don't, it's one of those teen things, like snitches and stitches and what have you. But
Exactly. I
I
know.
didn't talk about it, but it bothered me and
Yeah.
it did hurt and I did feel like worried. And so my mother said to me, what do you want to do for your birthday tonight? Do you want to go out for a meal or whatever? And I was like, that martial art class I was talking about? I
Good
think I'm gonna
motivation.
go. Right. And the reason I tell that story is because I was thinking about it lately because I was thinking about like young people now getting into martial arts, right? And it's like I feel like as an adult, it's hard to understand like what's the problem? Like you need to learn martial arts. Why don't you do it? Like how the world is. But I also remembered, well, I was a kind of a procrastinating teenager
Right.
back then and it took me like it took three attempts, right? For me to go from seeing something that I wanted to do to actually doing it, right? And that was a pretty, I'm not saying like go out and beat people up randomly so they start martial arts, right? But I'm saying like it
Here's
was a
my
pretty
card.
it's
Right.
my God, right? So I went and I started training at this club in England for a while with a guy called Ted Lunn. He's still a friend of mine. We still talk and
Okay.
and it was great training for years. And then I guess in the early 2000s, I had a chance to go and work overseas, and I had a chance to go to Japan,
Nice.
and I uh, I realized that it was like there was so much depth to this thing, right? And I was just like, wow, there's just so much more to this than I know. And I bumped into to Jack Hoban, right? So I bumped into Jack.
Good old Jack.
Um, And I had a business trip in the US and I got a chance to go and train at one of his seminars. Would you believe at the time that I was here, there was a seminar. So I went to see him and Bud Malmstrom, right? So you
Oh,
know
yeah.
him as well. Yeah. And yeah, and then I left and then I got an opportunity to stay here long term and I came back and I started training with Jack
Yeah.
and I guess it was in the fall of 2006 and here I am in 2025, almost the end of the year. And I've been going, and at the time I was living in Pennsylvania, so I was going almost every week and most seminars for all those years. And then I moved to New Jersey in 2019. So
What
up
was it
until then,
was it in 2019 when you moved to Vancouver?
end of 2019, just before COVID,
For COVID, yeah. Huh.
just before that happened. And so, yeah, I've been training, and that's how we got to meet, right, at
Yeah.
the seminars. And then when Jack pulled away from the Monday night class, I started taking on the Monday night class. So we had like a basics and beginners night.
Yep.
And then now when he's away in Hawaii, I kind of run things while he's away. and I help out at the RGI stuff. I'm sure you talked with him about in previous podcasts, and so I've had exposure to working with like the police departments and what have you, and a lot of other interesting people that have come through over the years
There's been
and
a
all the
lot of
different.
those, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's about it, really. I've just been tagging along with him ever since, and
No, it's
here
been
I
a
am.
fun ride, man. It's been good. So, how long were you over in Japan?
Well, I visited Japan probably about 11 times in
Okay.
total,
Well,
and each time was just like 1 or 2 weeks,
a week. Yeah.
like almost 2 weeks type thing.
That's a lot. I mean, that's
Yeah,
still 11, 11 to 22 weeks. That's a fair amount of time in Japan. I've been there a handful of times, but not 11 times.
yeah,
I want to get back too. Once my back's fully healed, I want to get back to Japan for haven't been there since 19, just before COVID. So
yeah.
be
It's a
fun.
special place, it's a very special place, and it's a very special atmosphere, right? It's got a unique culture, which
It is.
is nice to experience that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to live there, but it's cool to visit. And it'd be interesting now, I think, visiting too, because of Hatsumi's retirement and whatnot. And things have probably changed substantially with the Bujinkan. And I'm not saying it's bad or anything, just different, I'm sure. So figured,
Change, right? Life's
yeah,
change.
that's changed.
Yeah.
That's how it works. But well, thanks for sharing that background on that. And you still teach the Monday, Wednesday classes, and then you do the seminars too, right? You do once a month, you teach
Yeah.
seminars.
Got one tomorrow.
Hey, there you go. So
Yeah.
if you're in the
New Jersey
Green
area,
Lake, New Jersey area, drop
Spring
by
Lake. Yeah.
good old Warren Avenue there.
Yeah. Can find us on winjutsu.com. So WINJUTSU.com. If you go to the events section, all the seminars are on there. At least the ones that are currently scheduled. There's more going on the calendar for next year.
Yeah, that's worth going to. And if you're local to that area, you want some place to train, Tony's one of the best. So go and train with him and his crew. And I was excited to see that you actually advertised on on was it Instagram?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm getting into that now. It's like I said, I came to that realization about my own experience is that, and one of the questions I didn't answer is like, why do I still do it now, right? And what motivates me and what have you. And I think when I first started doing it, it was maybe like fear and revenge and and
Right.
delusions of grandeur that you have when you're a teenager, right?
Yeah.
But over the years, it's evolved into a recognition of something far deeper, right? And far more, far more human, and the whole ethical warrior mindset and the sort of the tactical piece and the fact that it can be for anyone, right? At different ages and levels of ability and what have you. And there's a practical side to it, but there's also like, well, there's a lot of different ways of making it practical, right? There's the physical safety, but there's the health piece, which we can talk about as well. And then there's the mental aspect as well, especially today with, so many people having problems because of all the technology and social media and all the rest of it. And, being able to protect yourself in multi dimensions, right? And adapting the ideas of thousands of years ago, adapting those ideas to the modern age. And even just thinking about in the last couple of generations, how much has changed, right? And that evolution, and recognizing that it's something that helps me and makes me feel good. I often joke that like, you ever see that movie Billy Elliot? Did you ever see that
Oh
movie
yeah,
about
yeah,
yeah, right? And he goes to that dance school and they say,
yeah.
what do you feel when you're dancing? And he says, I can't remember this full speech. I can't do the speech the way he does it, right? But he basically says he feels that he disappears,
Yeah, right, right, right.
you know,
Kind of in that
and
flow.
in that flow, and that resonates actually. Like when I'm doing training in martial arts, I'm in the dojo and everything, you kind of get into that flow, and he says like all the bad stuff, it just kind of dissipates.
It does.
Get
It's
that break.
amazing.
Yeah, and you feel rejuvenated, you feel refreshed, you feel good. So I think, if there's young people out there and they have like preconceptions about martial arts, maybe they've watched a few episodes of Cobra Kai and everything, and that's all fine and fun and whatever. But, there's other parts of it too, which like, if people are struggling with exhaustion and burnout from social media and school
Depression,
and
anxiety.
relationships and yeah, and all this kind of stuff, then I recommend doing something that's fully absorbing like traditional martial arts because it's not just about being the toughest or being the best or you're actually learning to be the best version of yourself, right? And so that's more meaningful and I think it's more helpful at this point.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mirror all your sentiments. That's why I have guys like you on the show. I mean, people who share that ethic of training because a lot of people they do. They think oftentimes, well, it's only about physical personal protection. And no. I mean, yes and no, but there's just so much more to it and so many different facets. And the cool thing is everybody can take it for them, and how they want to approach it. And there's so many different areas to go into, and especially Bujinkan too is so rich. The breadth and depth of the art is so rich that you can, everything from historical to philosophy to, the physicality of it to the history of it to all the weapons and the mentality of it, the strategic aspects of it, and not to overlook the social elements to it.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
huge, and we definitely discovered that during COVID of how
Mhm.
important those personal interactions and connections are. Whether it's, like you and I, Tony. I mean, we've known each other for quite a long time now, and here we are. We're joining together on the Zoom call and sharing this together. And then obviously we all have our own local clubs too, to where we meet on a regular basis with individuals and develop relationships. But it's one of the things that I really I don't know what the right word would be. There was a little bit of a melancholy in there that I kind of missed out, and there was a little bit of a um, maybe gratitude that I got to share part of it. But going to Japan, the handful of times that I did, just seeing the people come together and knowing that a lot of those guys came together at least once a year for like 30, 40 years
Mm.
and they would come together and reunite and share what they were training in and connect and not only doing the training but also you go out for a few adult beverages after class and you go on your little day trips and you really connect and to me that was a huge part of this idea of being a warrior and this idea of being buyu, martial friend. And
Mhm.
no, that's a big part of it. I think a lot of people overlook. They don't think about it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Yeah, I think you've articulated it so well. It's true. Like, and these are the things that you maybe aren't looking for, but you come to appreciate later, right? And it's like that's kind of like the advertising now. I'm trying to reframe how people see this, right? It's not just about, like you say, it's not just about the physical piece, but that's certainly a solid bonus, right?
Oh, absolutely. You
Like when
want
you're
to
walking
take
around
care of business if you have to.
yeah, like when I'm going around, New York City on the subway and what have you, and just having, that sort of like mellow yellow and having, like and taking care of your body for 15 minutes a day so that you're flexible and ready to move and have some residual strength that you can use. That's always helpful too, but also being able to just know that you have some recourse if there is a physical situation, whether it's a person or just like a flood or a fire or whatever else,
Right,
right? You
whatever.
you, you got to be ready. And so there's a practical piece, but it's not just it's not just a practical piece. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, and
Right.
the sum of the parts, or how does that term go again? The sum is greater than its parts.
Yeah.
All of it together is much greater than any one piece of it. And but only if you're training correctly. And I'm not trying to like, oh, you need to train, only this way, but there is a formula to it. And I see a lot of people not training in a holistic way. And so they only
Mm.
get partial benefit and some of them, they develop maybe not so good habits. So I think it's important that you find the right teacher and the right system and something that resonates with you, but is also, I would holistically healthy, I guess is my point. Depending on what you want. You got to start with your why. Why are you getting
Mm,
started in it in the first place? And that why can change over the years. I know it has for me, and by
mhm,
the sounds of it, it has
mhm,
for you too, Tony.
mm,
And so people got to keep checking in. But
mhm,
I'll get people who come in, they want to be fighters, right? They want to go in the ring and fight. It's like, I'm
mhm,
not your guy.
mhm.
I did that. At one point in time in our academy, we had a competition team and whatnot, but that's a long time ago. And I'm not really, if you want to do that, nothing wrong with it. I got a lot out of it, but there's a time
Mm.
and a place for it. And, go do that, but that's not this. So,
Right,
know why you want to train, and that will help to guide, I think, the individual into who to seek out and who to surround themselves with and how to train the methodology of that. Which
right.
brings us kind of full circle, probably a good segue to your book.
Yes.
Um, Part of obviously learning martial arts and whatnot, there is a physical aspect to it. And yes, you can get a workout when you're training in martial arts, but that's not the primary focus. It shouldn't be, at least the way I train.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely goes hand in hand. So the more that you can be healthy and don't have to necessarily be a rock star or an Olympic athlete, but keeping up on yourself so you can perform better in class and live a better life. What I really liked about your book, a lot of things I loved about your book.
Mm,
One, the name itself, a compact workout. I mean, that's such a good title, especially for today's day and age and people who are at any age, but my mind always goes to the people who are 30s, 40s and above, who, they're not young hard chargers anymore. Not that
mhm,
obviously you can still do it when you're a young hard charger, but you've got other
mm,
obligations. You're busy life, you got kids, you got a career, maybe you're not as in good of shape as you'd like to when you're younger and you want to get back on the horse and sustain it. And I loved how you started your book with a question. And that question really was illustrated in a problem that we talked about a little bit earlier. And then the solutions to that problem. And I also liked how you used your personal experience and your personal journey to share to help inspire people and tell of your experience. But want to go a little bit into your book?
Sure. Yeah. I assume the question is, you know, why should anyone listen to me? And my response was, well, if nothing else, if everything else that the experts are saying do, and you're being bombarded with all these advertisements and bits of info, if that's not working, then maybe you should try this
Maybe try
instead, right?
this. Right.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I try to do in the book is, and for myself, is to try to keep it simple, right? I mean, there is, of course, value in many things, that we can do for ourselves in terms of what we eat and what we do and everything. But if you're not taking care of the basics, then it's like, if you're eating, 5 candy bars a day and you're getting these giant sugar spikes, then it doesn't matter if you take like some kind of sodium supplement with your water to hydrate yourself with electrolytes, whatever. Who cares, right? Your body doesn't need that, right? And I always joke that for most people, right, if there's like 100 things wrong with you, and five of those things would absolutely transform your life if you solved those problems, you can guarantee most people will actually take the 95 easier ones first, right? Sounds
That's
familiar, right?
that's exactly
You
it.
know? And so I'm trying to help people sort of tackle those challenges and like one of my favorite parts in the book was when I realized that I was focusing so much on the exercise and not about the food, right? And
Well, that was one of the things that I really appreciated about the book too, Tony,
mm,
is that it does have very simple nutritional guidelines on it. Not like, hey, here's the Tony Super Diet, here's the next South Beach or Atkins or whatever, but just some really good, I think, informative guidelines to help people on their journey with it. And if you notice too, I mean, the book is pretty thin. I mean, and I mean that as a compliment. It's
mhm,
not some like huge tome that you have to take forever to read and dissect. I like simple. I
mhm,
love simple. That's why I loved your book, and
mhm.
I liked that it not only had the physical aspects of it, but it also had the dietary aspects and some of the mentality too.
And I learned so much, right? Because when I was young, I did like physiology modules, right, for my sports science degree. I did biology and psychology and all sorts of stuff. And but just the fundamental process of how your body metabolizes sugar, right? I was very fortunate that I saw some content online where I was like, oh, I get it now.
Mm.
And that's just so obvious. And I hope it's clear in the book, but basically the fact that whenever you elevate your blood sugar above a certain amount, your insulin takes that sugar and deposits it into your muscles and fat,
Yep.
right? And so over time, having too much sugar basically reduces your insulin response, which means more sugar in your blood. And I talk about that too, which is that your cells stop performing when you have too much sugar. And I remember years ago, I don't know if you remember that Super Size Me thing, and which has been kind of
Oh
debunked
yeah,
now
yeah.
because it turned out the guy was kind of like not doing everything he said. But he interviewed someone who drank, a giant liter cup of soda or something 3 times a day, whatever. And one time he ended up in hospital and he lost his eyesight for 3 hours. And when I heard that in the documentary at the time, that's why I remember because I was just so shocked. But I was like, how is that even possible? But now I understand because if you have enough sugar in your bloodstream and your insulin response is so low that it gets so high, blood flows through your optical nerves, blood
Right.
flows through your brain and everything. It can shut them down. It
Yeah.
can shut them down temporarily, inflammation and all sorts, right? And so, it really was quite an eye-opener. Once I understood the mechanics of how it worked, um, it became a big thing. And I used to think about blood as being like like blood sugar as being like a diabetic problem, like, monitor your blood sugar level. But now that I understand it a bit more deeply, it's like, wow, like if you understand, if you're armed with the knowledge, you can still enjoy
Right.
sweet treats and nice foods, right? But you have a way to gauge like, am I going too far? Like, have I crossed a line? And that's kind of what I was, the book is not really like you say, it's not prescriptive. It's like, here's the information, here's the principles, here's how I'm applying them.
Right.
But by the way, you can apply them your own way because, like you said, if you are younger, right? Maybe you can do more with that, do something different with that 15 minutes that I need to include at least a couple of minutes for the sort of the PT rehabilitation type exercises because, as you get older, muscles that are stabilizing muscles that are hard to reach, they deteriorate
Trust
even
me,
if you
oh, man. I
exercise.
my
Right.
back surgery. I've been in. I just I worked out this morning. Then I had PT. My physical. I've been in physical therapy for several months now, and it has been an interesting journey, my friend.
Yeah, there's the muscles that you can't hit them. And so the only way to hit them is to do very specific exercises. So when you get older, you need to do those specific exercises more routinely because that's the only way to keep them going, to keep
Right.
the electronic signals constantly stimulating them, right? So that they feel a reason to exist. But when you're young, you don't need to really hit them as much because they're still young, healthy muscles, right? And so it wasn't supposed to be prescriptive, you're right, in terms of the diet and the exercise, because it was more like, here's how I applied it. And given your situation, which could be very different, apply in a different way. And that's, maybe that's something that I need to focus on more in the future is maybe get some people to, and actually I do, by the way, there's a couple of people that I'm working with right now that have used the principles from my book and they have had great results in terms of losing weight, feeling in better shape, feeling great, feeling healthy. Um, so it does work. It does work, and
I mean,
not
it's
just for
just
me.
really good basics. It's really good. I think a whole kind of a holistic way of approaching it, and something like you say, it's very formulaic, where you could utilize this or you could tweak that, or if you're young, do 30 minutes, or quadruple it, do an hour. But yeah,
Yeah, why not? Yeah, or
but I
do
like
that as a warm up, and then do something else
right.
afterwards, like whatever you want to do. And
Yeah,
and absolutely. And I think that the piece that people should start with is the motivational piece,
right.
right? Which is think about a really good long-term reason why you should do this. right? And I've got kids that I have to be, I've got young kids. I'm going to be 50 next year.
You're gonna be
My
50?
Yeah, my youngest is 3 years old, right? So that's, so I have to be in shape to be a good parent, right?
If you want to be,
So
yeah.
that's a baseline motivation.
One
I need
thing,
to be able to.
too, I mean, things change as, I've been training my entire life. I started
Mhm.
when I was like 6. My dad started in martial arts when I was 6. He was a Marine and trained in Okinawa in the Philippines, boxing and karate. And he started me when I was 6 years old. I've been training ever since. And I'm 55 now, I'll be 56 in a few months. And things change. I mean, and if you want to keep going, you cannot keep doing like you did when you're in your teens and 20s and 30s. And, I don't know, I think they say about every 7 years or so, your body goes through a pretty substantial change. And that's been pretty accurate
I
with,
think for us it's 14 because we're twice as good, right?
I
But I
like it.
agree.
I like it.
Because it's
But
funny because you're right because about 14 years ago, I remember feeling like I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do martial arts because it started to get to the point where at the end of a class on the way home, I'm like, oh, I'm struggling to do this, right? And at that time, I found yoga,
oh, yeah.
but I had more time, so I could spend a couple of hours a week going to yoga classes and all that kind of stuff. So that sustained me,
Yeah.
and I actually felt better going to class after that, right? So I recognize, but then now I got to this situation. It's like again, like how am I going to keep doing this? Like you said, if you want to do it for a long time, how? How do I do it?
Well, that's the thing too. And I'm not, folks out there, don't take this the wrong way because I'm not trying to undermine younger instructors by any stretch. But I'm very wary of young instructors because oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes they have a very young mentality of what the body can do and what workouts should be, indicative of and whatnot. And if they don't have a lot of training in the right way, I just am very wary of younger instructors because it's like, man, I'm thinking the long haul nowadays. I realized probably in my definitely about my early mid 40s because I competed up until I was in my mid 30s. Actually, just before I met Jack, I was still competing, and those days are gone, and that's fine. I'm glad I did them, and they're gone. But point is now I realize, like in my probably late 30s, early 40s, that I was training more for sustainability than I was for peak performance.
Yes,
And I still
exactly.
do, I've done other competitions, I did some Spartan races and, different things, but not, martial arts stuff. I haven't done a martial arts competition in a long
Mhm,
time, and I don't plan to. I'm good.
mhm,
Better know that got shirt. I'm fine. But my point is, everybody's performance training, I think, is different. My performance training is I just want to be mobile and healthy and able to move around and live in a joyful way. And then, yeah,
mhm,
if something is to go down, then I can still protect myself and other people. But my training is not jeopardizing my health.
mhm.
Every time you go and train that you're worried about getting, massively wrecked or you're putting yourself through paces that you're just, you know,
And if you're a teacher, you're supposed to inspire people,
yeah.
right? I mean, I didn't say it in the book because there's certain things but I'll say it on your podcast. It's fine. But one of the motivations for being in shape was I didn't want to be another old, bald guy out of shape doing martial arts. You see enough of it on YouTube and
Uh,
Instagram and stuff, right? I was like, I don't want to be another guy who's like, well, I used to be. It's like, no, I want to be like in good shape still,
yeah. And there's
I
no
still want to be able to
reason why you
move and
can't, right?
yeah, yeah. There's no point in like, and also, how can you tell your students, how can you set an example, right? If you're not doing it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like it kind of and I look at it the other way as well, which is that motivation piece is like if you're not taking care of yourself, then maybe you're more likely to get ill, or maybe you're not able to be as productive in life. And whether you're talking at your work or with your family or with your community or your country or the world, the human race as a whole, right? Well, who else is going to carry that weight now,
Yeah.
right? And so there's like a part of it which is like like see it with those eyes. See that neglecting your body is not just a choice that impacts you, but it impacts the world around you.
Yeah,
And see
absolutely.
that when you take steps to actually, make yourself more capable physically, it's not just about, living longer or whatever, but it's actually like having a positive uplift on everyone around you.
Right. I want to be inspirational to people around me, and I don't want to be a burden. I mean, to the best of my abilities, I don't want to be a
Mhm.
burden because I didn't take care of myself. And, now my health is so disintegrated that I need the help of other people because, I got, you know, things that were avoidable. I mean,
Right.
you could run into things that are unavoidable, but,
Hmm.
unforeseen, but things that I can be in control of, like my diet and my fitness levels and whatnot, to the best of my abilities.
Right.
And
And you're recovering right now, right? And you think about two versions of you, right? One version of you that was not in good shape, was never doing martial arts to begin with, came out of surgery and basically didn't make any effort, right? And just kind of like we're meeting now. And this version of you where you were training the whole time and trying to make it work, right? And then you went in kind of preparing yourself, and when you came out, you're trying to do like balance the act and do as much as you can realistically with what you have, right? If you compare those two versions of yourself, like it's just like night and day, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
I don't even know what I would be like, to be honest with
yeah.
you. If training helps me to be a better person. And I'm not saying I'm a great person, but I'm a lot better than I than I
I almost said
used
that
to be.
earlier, which is like, if you think I'm a now, then imagine what kind of person I'd have been like if I never did
Exactly,
martial
man. You
arts,
think I'm a
right?
Delta
Yeah.
Bravo now. Wait, I didn't train. And I can't imagine going through, and I don't want to over dramatize what happened in my procedure and whatnot, but I can't
Hmm.
imagine going through that
Hmm.
without training, my training. I
Yeah.
can't imagine being older, being less in shape,
Hmm.
I mean, I can't imagine that. It was very challenging in the condition I was in, and I did
Hmm.
prepare for it, both dietary wise and conditioning wise, as much as I could with what I had. And I feel the best I have right now is I have in probably, I would say, easily 7, if not 10 years.
Wow. And that's coming through, like I feel like your persona was struggling. You know what I
Oh, it
mean? Like
was.
it's yeah, and it's as a friend, you feel the difference and you're not quite sure, but like now I see like turnaround, you know?
Oh, it's huge, man. I can't, again, I don't want to show this episode's about you, but my
Yeah.
world, I was literally watching my world disintegrate around me.
Hmm.
It was
Yeah.
shrinking. It got
And,
to the
and
point
and
my
that's
legs were numb. I
yeah.
couldn't, I was still training the best I could, but it was
Hmm.
excruciating. And I got to the point to where I was doing less and less social things. It was affecting my mood and it was
Hmm.
affecting my attitude. It was, I was trying, you can only fight that for so long.
Yeah. And you say like it's about me and but what you just described there, if you say the aspects of it which are like you feel the world closing in around you, right? You're how do I do what I want to do? And it's affecting your mood, it's affecting your self view and everything. That's the same story. My
It
story
is.
is the same. It's the same story. It's just a different. It's not as extreme, not as intense, but it's the same story. And I think, and I think it's a story of hope for anyone who's out there who's maybe like they just like, oh man, I just don't have time, right? Well, you do have time, and okay. So then the next question is, well, what do I do with that time? Well, read the book, and it'll give you some ideas. Figure it
Ideas.
out. Figure it out.
Figure it
And
out.
I'll definitely, over the next, probably few months, create some videos and stuff to go with the book, and I'll add a couple more chapters. Some of the things I've been working on is I've been experimenting with some supplements.
Yes.
Mostly, I have to say that they're pretty much a waste of time or they're counterproductive. Um,
I've been doing stuff since I was a teenager, dude. And I'll tell you what,
yeah.
I had to be before surgery, for a month before surgery, I had to be off
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and right now I don't take any medication.
Yeah.
I haven't taken any Tylenol or ibuprofen or anything since my surgery, since before
Yeah.
my surgery.
Well,
Uh,
I found creatine was good, but
okay, yeah, creatine too.
but 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 what I found was it made me burn myself out because if you give me some extra
juice.
awakeness and energy and
Right.
like feeling, then I'll do more. So
Right.
then and then it'll catch up with me eventually. So I'm like, you know what? Just do what you can do with your body as it is. Don't try to, be Superman. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm doing like really heavy resistance bands now,
Okay. Nice.
like really heavy resistance bands. So I'm gonna write about that. But I wrote about the resistance bands and the mechanics of why that works. But now I'm trying some like super heavy ones, and I found that really good for I was getting some shoulder pains and stuff,
Yeah.
and it was really interesting because I shouldn't really spoil my book, but one of the observations was like sometimes when you get like a pain in a joint, like a shoulder, you want to work on those small muscles, the supportive muscles, right? But I actually found my supportive muscles were the ones that were not happy. And so when I started working some of the bigger muscles like the chest and the lats and the delts and what have you, and doing like really heavy resistance bands, that actually helped my supportive muscles get some recovery. So again, it's
Mhm.
like constantly readdressing the balance, right, in your
Yeah.
body. There's no one, like you say, it's not just there's no one way for one person, for every person, but even that one person has to adapt and evolve as things change, right?
That's cool. And
So,
and it is interesting because things, we were talking about earlier about how things change as you get older and whatnot, or injuries will change how you work things. But you got to keep trying to find that balance,
mhm.
and you got to keep shaking it up and paying attention and experimenting with different things and doing it in a way that won't wreck you. So. So what advice do you have for folks on two ways? Number one, staying in shape, and
Mhm.
number two is walking this protector path. What advice would you have somebody who maybe wants to get into those paths
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
sustain?
Yeah, and I would say they definitely go into each other, right? Because how are you
Absolutely.
going to protect anyone else if you're not taking care of yourself every day,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I think, advice for people who want to get into shape if they're not, um, just take one bite at a time, right? The one thing that I see all too often in martial arts and fitness and everything, it's the beginning of the year, you go to the gym. It's January, it's packed. The first
Act.
2 weeks, it's packed. And then the numbers just drop
Yeah.
because and it's not just because people can't sustain it, it's because they injure themselves, because they push themselves too hard, they try to do too much. So just do one bite at a time. Don't try to eat the whole thing at once, right? Just say, okay, you know what? I'm going to start with just like modifying my breakfast. That's it. Don't change anything else. Just change your breakfast. I'm going to start by just doing the warm-up exercises from the book. And that's only, by the way, 4 minutes, right? So I'll just start doing 4 minutes a day and I'll just do those exercises. And that'll start getting me a bit more aware of my body again, because a lot of it's about your brain connecting with your body and it's a connection that you're born with. We talk about this in the Bujinkan as well, like your taijutsu. It's something you're born with, but over the time you lose it because we live in a non-natural world, right? So, do the kind of like the foundational exercises, the ones that are good for your body, for stretching and for mobility and for moving. Do those first, and maybe change like your breakfast, something simple, and then do that for a while, make it part of your life, and then add more. That's how you succeed. If you try to sign up for a 3 days a week personal trainer and a creatine supplement and a whole bunch of vitamins and stuff and an electrolyte pack that you saw from some podcast or whatever, you're gonna fail every time.
Too much,
It's
and
too much.
you got to develop a habit.
Expectations are too high.
Yeah.
And I think with the warrior path, it's a very, very similar thing. But I would say that, when I was in Japan one time, Hatsumi Sensei said something very important. He said, be careful. You've got to be careful who you pick as a teacher.
Yeah, I would agree.
And he said there's three qualities that a teacher should have. He said the person has to be able to do it, meaning the person has to be able to do the physical, tactical, ethical stuff they're talking about, right? They have to be good at teaching it because there's people who are amazingly talented at stuff but can't teach it. They
Yeah,
just
and
don't
which is
get it, right? And then they have to be a good person. which was really interesting, right? And by that he means like they have to be a good person in the sense that they live a good life and are, you know, and he said if you don't pick someone who has those three things, he says it can affect you in ways you would never have predicted later on. And
Oh,
I know several people who've experienced this. I have my own experience of various arts that I did and teachers, and I won't get into that, but it's definitely true. Like you can see how dangerous that is. So I would say the first thing is find a teacher who is has those three things. Make sure that they can do what you can't do yet. Make sure they could communicate it well with you so you can learn from them, and make sure that person has a good reason for doing what they do, right? And that comes back to the, I wouldn't say young teachers are bad, like you say, but it's like, but there is a tendency for young people to have different motivations. And so be careful about that. And there's also people who are older who are also
oh yeah.
very dangerous too.
Well,
So
and I'm
that
not
would be my
saying
advice.
I want to preface. I am not saying that young teachers are bad.
No, I know. I'm just adding, like to that. Yeah, yeah. I'd say that's my advice is find someone who has those three things. And again, come in with small initial expectations. This is not something you learn overnight. It's okay if you want to achieve something within a certain amount of months. Like I'm right now in New Jersey, I'm offering like a 3-month training program from white belt to green belt, which is the
Oh,
first rank, right? And
yeah,
that gives people something to focus on. And by the way, if you get to that point and you complete the 3 months and you get your certificate, whatever, and you're done now, that's fine.
yeah.
Like you can tick it off your bucket list and you do with something else, like whatever it is, right? Flower arranging or whatever, right? Now, if but I don't go into martial arts thinking that you're going to become like, Danny LaRusso, right? Like
Right.
you're going to get taken in by some esoteric master and he's going to teach you all this stuff and it's going to be like a montage where years of training happens in 5 minutes, right? It's
Right.
that's the again, I think it's the expectations versus reality. And I think that's the culture we live in,
Yeah.
is the instant gratification and the movie sort of story where like Rocky trains for like 5 minutes and he fights for 30 minutes, right? In the
Yeah.
movie. It's like that's the other way around, right? It's like you fight for a few rounds and you've trained for years, right? And
Years. Yeah.
that's the reality of it. And I think that go in with that thinking of I'm just here to learn and explore and understand and have a clean slate because I kick myself constantly because I realize as I dig deeper into this art and I'm that learning things that I'm like, it was there the whole time.
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of things I'm learning right now. I'm like, it was there in front of me the whole time. I just couldn't see it because I had a preconception of what martial arts was and what it should be. And if I'd only come in with more of an open mind, I could have saved myself like 10 years or more of like training, you know?
Because I mean, it's that journey that like uncovers that too. I mean, it's like
Right.
peeling the onion back, it's
Yeah.
layer by layer, and that's the I think beauty of it for both the art, but also as us as human beings to experience that journey. I was just having a conversation with some of my new students that had just started not that long ago. And I told them, I said, I know it sounds funny and it's easy for me to say because I'm in a different spot, but
Mm.
enjoy this time of your training because you're never going to get it back of this
So true.
new, right?
Yeah.
This new time where it's so fresh and you're excited about it and all this. I mean, and I know you want it all now. I totally get that. But try to appreciate this and then stay curious,
Yeah.
stay joyful about your training.
Absolutely. Oh, you're so right. Like I remember those days where everything was new and you just learned so quickly because you like it was just so much information, right? And that feeling was it was so special. But you can't get back to that.
No.
You can't.
And I
Our
love
brains are too full of stuff now.
right, that's it. And
Yeah.
I think Jack used this analogy. I'm not sure if he did or if I made it up or whatever, but I call it the Christmas analogy, right? When
Mhm.
you were like your young kids, how old is your youngest?
3,
So what's your 3-year-old's name?
Amalia.
Amalia. So when Amalia comes into Christmas,
Hmm.
she is probably in awe of this joy and the lights and the
Hmm. Hmm.
presents and
Hmm.
that. and maybe you told her that Santa's a real thing,
Hmm. Hmm.
so they have all that wonder and that somewhat fantasy and all that. And then they get a little older and they realize, somebody tells them Santa's not a real thing, it's mom and dad, and then that kind of gets broken. And then later on, you have to go, oh, you're going to get gifts for other people. Like, wait a minute, I'm going to get gifts for other people too. I don't just get them.
Yeah,
Then
Christmas
you get a
becomes
little,
stressful.
right. Then you get a little older yet, and maybe when you're a teenager, a little older, Christmas is kind of pain in the butt. 'Cause you want to be hanging out with your friends and doing other things. And then older yet, you maybe have kids of your own, like you and I have kids, and now you start to see Christmas through their eyes. And
Hmm.
then now I'm at a phase two, and you probably are, I would imagine, where my parents aren't going to be around for very long.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm really not only nostalgic about and grateful for all the Christmases we've had in our relationship, but
Hmm.
also knowing that there's a shelf life on this and it's not going to be around forever. And the
Yeah.
point of the story is if you want to continue to experience Christmas like you were when you were three,
Mm.
now you're 50 or 40,
Mm.
30 or 20,
Mm.
you're
Mm.
going to be missing out because
Hmm.
you're not going to appreciate it because
Hmm.
it's not that.
The meaning's changed.
The meaning has changed, right?
Yeah, the meaning's changed. And I
And
think that's, yeah.
so each time that you progress along this, you have to find an appreciation for it and curiosity of what it is now to you.
Hmm.
And if
Yeah.
you do that, it'll always be a great Christmas, or in our case, training. It'll always be great training if you live in the now and find the beauty in that. So
Yeah, that's right. And I think I may use that. I may steal that, Craig. I might use that
again, I may have
tomorrow.
stole it too. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Some of the stories I tell, I'm
Are
not sure
you
if they're
is this
mine or
are you
Jack's
doing
or
a
somebody
fence
else's.
sale here? Is that what it is? That
What's that?
you a fence? Are you a fence? You're selling stolen goods to me over the
I
podcast.
might be. I'm not sure. But steal it away.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty, I don't know, at least of my experience, it's pretty accurate. It's because you see
No,
people.
it's true. And but you know what? You did that was an enlightening moment for me because you're right. It's like I never thought about it. Like the reason you can't stay in that nostalgic moment is because it would actually be harmful
Yeah,
to do that when you're older because you've got other things to consider, right? And so to be effective, to apply Christmas appropriately, it expresses itself in a different way. It's not good or it's not better or worse. It's just different. And and I think that's maybe that's another thing as well is like if you're starting off on this protector lifestyle, getting into martial arts and whatever and all this, um, just remember that um, at first you're going to be taking as is basics, all kinds of known literature and facts and information. But eventually it will become your job to apply that in your life,
right.
right? And so just be that open book at the beginning but don't give up because eventually you'll start to figure out ways to apply it in your life. And that's when the good stuff happens. That's when you start to say, oh, I'm applying that in how I do work or how I deal with my family or how I deal with any situation, right? You can use elements of your training to overcome things that maybe are bothering you right now.
Right.
So yeah, be patient.
Yeah, stay the path. Keep going, as we all
That
like to
was
say.
funny story when I was in Japan on my first trip. I was training with a guy, a very good guy. He used to live there for years and he used to translate for Hatsumi. And we were doing this thing with a rope, I think it was, or whatever, tricky thing. And we were training together at Hatsumi's class, and he was doing everything right, but it wasn't working out. And I was doing everything wrong, but it was kind of working out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And so Hatsumi walked over and just looked at the frustration on this guy's face, right? And it's like the frustration, I know it because I've been there, right? It's like, what am
We
I
all
doing
have.
wrong? What am
Yeah.
I doing wrong? I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. And he just said to him, you see, it's not about being good or bad or being strong or weak. The important thing is just to keep going.
There's a lot of, I mean,
And
it's
Yeah.
such a simplistic but yet profound statement. At first, you're like, yeah, yeah, whatever, keep going. I got it. Shut up. You know,
Right.
it's like a blow, and you think it's like a blow off kind of statement, but it is incredibly profound.
But it was like it was really for him, but it was also for both of us
Sure.
because if you think about it, he was saying to him like, don't give up, just keep training. You'll eventually figure out how to make what I'm teaching you actually work the way that it should or whatever. But at the same time, I needed to keep going because I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
I had no
Exactly.
clue.
It's like you're getting the end goal, but you don't have the formula. So
Yeah, it's not reliable because I won't be able
yeah,
to reproduce it. You know what I mean? And so like whichever side of those whichever side of the thing you're on, the answer is the same, and that's the simplicity that you're talking about. It's like, and someone said to me the other day, they said there's a famous expression which is, I would pay nothing for the complexity on the other side of simplicity, but I would pay everything for the simplicity on the other side of complexity,
there you go. Yeah,
right? Which is basically means if you're going to add in a whole bunch of stuff, complexity on top of what I do today, which is easy, I don't want anything to do with that. I really don't want that. But if you're telling me that I can get rid of this complexity and simplify it, then I'm all ears.
yeah, I'm all in on that.
Yeah,
Well,
but
that's the
that's a
thing too. In
journey.
today's day and age, I mean, everything is complicated enough. We don't need more complexity to it, which brings us back to your book and the
Yeah.
methodologies that you share in your book. I mean, it's about
Hmm.
you can always add stuff.
Hmm.
Adding is easy.
Hmm.
Knowing what the essence and the quintessence of something is hard. That's the difficult part. It's like, okay, you got all
Right.
the stuff, but what are the really critical, what's the really critical areas and critical spots?
And how many things can you hit in one go, right? In martial arts, quite often when I'm doing a class, I'll say, why am I doing this? And I'll say, there's always at least two or three reasons why I'm doing it. It's not just one reason. Like I try to cover as many bases as possible, right? Because that's more efficient. And it's the same with a compact workout. It's like, um, why am I eating kimchi? Well, because it's healthy, it's low sugar, low calorie, right? It's good.
Probiotics, prebiotics.
It adds, if you like it, it tastes good with rice and other things and kind of dilutes flavors a bit, enhances flavors. And then it also has like a probiotic effect and it makes you more resistant to disease and other things, right? So it kind of keeps your biome healthy in your gut, right? Or why do I think about blood sugar? Well, it's because like blood sugar just drives so much in your body.
It does.
So that's why I say like if you're not doing that right, then other things become pointless because you can make one change that has like 100 impacts, or you can make 100 impacts that barely have one change, right? And that to me is like it's about being efficient, and that idea of efficiency definitely comes out of traditional Japanese martial arts, right? I
Oh,
mean, it's
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. No, very much so.
a big part.
Painfully so. Sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we kind of live in between, right? Where we pay homage to it, but again, you were talking about the history of martial arts, right? And I spent a bit of time over COVID and maybe the year after when we were doing the year of Naginata, right, which is a pole arm, Japanese pole arm, right? And I started researching a bit of history, and I'm not really a historian, but I'm really good at asking questions, right? Which might be dumb, but some questions lead to interesting answers. And
Now they're
and
called prompts, right?
what's that?
Now they're called prompts. You prompt your AI to,
Prompts. Yeah, I'm
the
good at
better the
prompting.
better question or better prompt that you have, the better,
It's true
result
because
you get.
I became really aware that a lot of what people in general consider to be traditional Japanese martial arts is really just Edo period martial arts,
Sure.
which was after martial arts was really being used.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you had these and also, like all these books like Bushido, The Way of the Warrior and what have you, when they were written, which was in the Edo period, they were writing about samurai that existed in the Heian period,
Right. Earlier, right?
even earlier,
Yeah.
right? And during the Sengoku period, which most people think about where samurai were most active because it was the Warring States period, that was when they started to go more into the regular infantry troops, much as the same thing was happening in Europe, right? So, it was evolving, and the role of the noble samurai was fading in
Right.
favor of mass production of conscripted armies
Yep, the armies
with
and the warfare was
with
changing.
speed. Yeah, they call them the Ashigaru, and I don't know if you know this, but Ashigaru, it comes from the word Lightfoot, and
Hmm.
because in the older period, the peasants would side with one of the armies, and if they won, they got first dibs on the bodies to loot their stuff.
Okay.
They were like thieves, right? And so they weren't like regular military. There was just samurai class and their retainers, and then there was like peasants who were just like armed with big
Interesting. I did not know that.
stuff, right? And so, you know, once we got into the Warring States period, they started to realize, well, you can just make massive cheap spears
Right.
and recruit hundreds of guys and give them a little bit of training for like
Do
6 to 12 months.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can augment them with samurai that have trained since they were like 9 years old
Right.
or 6 years old or whatever until they're like in their early teens. By then they've got like they know how to read and write, they know how to read the map, the weather, they know how to
Yeah.
fight with all different kinds of weapons, ride a horse, etc. But they became more like specialists, like almost like skirmishers that were sent out to deal with specific things on the battlefield. But most of the soldiers by the end were just they were samurai in name, but they
Right.
were basically recruited samurai because it was convenient to have more people, right? And then so by the time we get into Edo, where the Do, like later we have judo, but we had like the Do arts, right? The way of the
Right.
warrior,
Right.
right?
Versus the
Um,
jitsus.
the samurai were no longer some of them were still going to samurai school, but they were trying to run businesses. They were trying to run like their land, and so it was very administrative. And so that's why a lot of the martial arts went to back down to just the family
Yeah.
or to a shrine or something. Like it wasn't like dojos, right? And then dojos came up, and dojos became like, oh, we need somewhere indoors, consistent place, and
Right.
very formalized. It's like, well, that's not how people train. So, you know, digging into the history for me was not so much about knowing facts about history, but it was about seeing that evolution and being like, well, hey, you know, don't worry about evolving what you learned in 80s and 90s and early 2000s and what have you, because it's been evolving the whole time
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
for various reasons.
For various reasons. Yeah.
Right. And so how can you apply it to your life in various different ways?
And that's
Right.
one of the things that I really appreciate about Hatsumi Sensei and also Jack.
Mhm.
Um, is that idea of like, well, how am I going to utilize these principles, these ancient principles in a modern way to make my life better, to protect myself and other people? And really, to me, that's really what being a warrior is, and following this, what I call PeaceWalker path is
Mhm.
about that. It's not necessarily this system or that technique or this technique or, it's how it all comes together, how those principles transform to the different times and the different elements and the different
Mhm.
applications and the different individuals and the different ways of using it to live that in that way, live
Yeah.
your life, live
You're
protect.
Peace Walker. Like it sounds like an explorer, someone who's out, traveling, right? And that means you're going to encounter different things.
Yeah.
And that means you can't have a fixed way because you're going to have to figure out how to solve a different problem as you walk about, you're going to have to apply peace and you can't do it in a fixed way. It's going to be different every time. So yeah, that's very cool. I'm buying into Peace Walker more now. I think we have to
Hey, just my expression of it. So,
yeah.
all right, it's probably a good time to wrap things up. So, Tony, I really appreciate you, first off, taking the time to share and talk with me. It's always good talking with you, and we don't do it well enough because I don't get out there as much as I like to. But I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me and sharing that with everybody who's listening.
Mhm.
And congratulations on your new book. And why don't you tell us again how to get a hold of the book and how to get a hold of you if they want to explore
Yeah.
more with you?
Sure. So if you go to Amazon and you type the compact workout, you won't find my book because there's like a whole bunch of other books that have paid money or sold better than mine. So the best thing to do is search for my name, Tony Notarianni, and then the compact workout, and then you'll find my book immediately. And then you can choose, do you want it on Kindle or do you want it on a paperback, whatever.
Nice.
Um, and then, oh, if you don't want to use Amazon, you can also contact me through social media. So my social, because I can also get a book for you. Some people don't like, dealing with Amazon, and I respect that. So I have the compact workout on Instagram. So you can
Okay.
find me on Instagram, compact workout. I also have a Facebook, the compact workout, and I have a YouTube channel. So certainly subscribe to those. Feel free to try to message me. Apologies if I don't reply immediately. As you know, if I only have 15 minutes to work out, imagine
Got three kids, a
with
wife, and a
everything
career,
else.
and you train.
Yeah. So, but yeah, reach out with any questions or ideas. If you if you if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help. Like I said, this is not so much about me trying to build some empire for myself. It's more about like, can we figure out a way to sort of improve our lives collectively, in our own ways.
Nice. Well, thanks again. Thanks for everybody out there listening. I appreciate your support. And grab Tony's book for your workout.
Stocking, yeah, start in January. In fact,
That's
start
it.
now. Just start
Get it,
now.
get it rocking, get it
Yeah.
rocking. And in the meantime, you already know how to get a hold of me. So you can check the show notes for Tony's contact information. I'll put it in there as well as mine. And thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining Tony. Thanks for being on, Mr. Tony. I appreciate it, man. And keep going, gang. We'll see you the next time around.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye bye.